They say there's no pain like watching your child forget you. But I think there's something worse, watching someone else try to make them forget. The first time I saw him drop my son off at school, I was parked 2 cars back. The engine was off. My hands gripped the steering wheel like I was trying to stop the world from spinning. I watched him ruffle my son's hair, lean down with that fake, easy smile, and say something that made my boy laugh. That laugh, my boy's laugh, cracked through the windshield like a stone. He was wearing my son's favorite team's hoodie, one I know he never owned before, and just like that, I was gone. Erased. To the teachers, to the other parents. I was just a name on a forgotten form, but I was still there. Watching, breathing, bleeding. I hadn't missed a single child support payment. I hadn't missed a birthday, a holiday, a game, not by choice. The court said joint custody, but the real world doesn't honor court papers when the other side has already started rewriting the story. I never thought I'd be in this position. A man on the outside, looking in on his own son's life like it was a movie he used to star in. I remember the way my boy used to run into my arms at the park, no hesitation, no second glance. The way he used to fall asleep on my chest after I read him that dumb dragon book for the 100th time. But now he's quiet on the phone, distracted. He calls me dad, but it feels thinner. Like the word's been stretched too far. Like he's trying it on for size ... Before taking it off again. There's this ache I carry, low in my ribs, like a bruise that never fades. I tell people I'm doing fine, that it's just a phase. But the truth is ... I'm haunted. Haunted by the image of another man standing in the place I fought for. Not just in court, but in my soul. He didn't earn my son's trust. He just ... Walked into it. Moved into the house I helped pay for. Started giving advice I once gave. Making pancakes on Sundays like I used to. Posting pictures online with captions like, "Love this little guy." He called him buddy. I used to call him that. That word didn't come from a script. It came from 1,000 days of love. Of late nights, of scraped knees and monster hunts, and whispered, "I love yous," in the dark. But now it was coming from a man who thought love could be substituted. Like a part in a machine. He thought he could take my place. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I was still there, watching, waiting, planning. Because being erased doesn't mean you disappear. Sometimes it just means you get quiet enough to see things they don't want you to see. And once I started paying attention, I noticed things, small things, off things, things that told me the story he was selling wasn't as sweet as it looked. I wasn't always like this, suspicious, calculating, always half listening for lies under smiles. But heartbreak changes you. Not the romantic kind. The parental kind. The kind that pulls pieces from your identity and replaces them with silence. I used to be a good man. Honest, trusting. The kind of man who believed in second chances. But after the divorce, after the endless mediation sessions and the rehearsed indifference in her voice, when she told the judge I was unstable, after I stood in a half-empty apartment staring at the toys, I wasn't allowed to give them any more. Something in me cracked. I didn't hate her. I couldn't. Not fully. We had built something real once. But I did hate how quickly she handed my role to someone else, like she was passing the salt across the table. His name was Kevin. Of course it was. Kevin. Bland. Harmless. The kind of guy your mom would say looks safe. But safe men don't erase fathers. It started subtly. First, my son stopped mentioning me in stories. Then, he started saying "we" when talking about things they did together, Kevin and my ex, like they were a package deal now. Then came the worst part. He drew a picture in school, my family. Kevin was there, front and center, smiling, standing next to my ex. My son had drawn himself between them, holding both their hands. I was in the corner, smaller, faded, no smile. That Image burned in my mind for days. I'd wake up gasping, like I'd been drowning in it. I tried to talk to my ex. I begged, gently, through texts, to keep things balanced, to remind our son of who I was in his life. She said I was being dramatic. That Kevin isn't trying to replace you. But it felt like he already had Dot until one evening. I noticed something. It was during a drop-off at the library. Kevin wasn't supposed to be there, but he showed up early. I stayed parked again, just watching, like I'd gotten used to. He crouched down to tie my son's shoes. My boy laughed and pulled away, and Kevin snapped at him. Just for a second. The mask slipped. The smile came back quick, like someone flipping a switch, but I'd seen it. A flash of control. Something performative. Cold. I went home that night and started writing everything down. Dates, incidents, things my son said. That didn't quite add up. Like how he wasn't allowed to call me after 7 p.m. anymore. Like how he didn't bring the drawings. I gave him back home. Said Kevin didn't like the clutter. Like how he flinched once when I raised my voice. Not even at him, just while yelling at the TV during a game. I started connecting dots. Patterns. Because something was wrong. And no one else was paying attention. Not his mother. Not the school. Just me. And I knew if I pushed too hard, they'd call it bitterness, obsession, maybe even jealousy. So I didn't push. I listened. I smiled. And I waited. Because sometimes the only way to uncover the truth is to let it think it's hidden. Looking back, the signs were always there. They just didn't scream. They whispered. Like the first time my son hesitated before hugging me goodbye. We were outside the diner we used to go to every other Saturday. He'd cleaned his plate, like he always did. Pancakes with chocolate chips, my special. But when it was time to leave, he looked toward the parking lot first. At Kevin's car. As if asking for permission. Then, merely brushing against me, he said, "Bye, Dad." Quick, flat, no eye contact. Something in my chest pulled tight. Not from what he did, but from what he didn't. The boy I raised used to jump on my back and yell, "I'm the dragon now." When I tried to leave, now he was worried about being seen hugging his father. There were other moments too. Quiet things. Once, I asked him what he wanted for his birthday. He said, "I already told Kevin." Kevin, not Mom. Not even we. It was subtle, but in that second, I realized Kevin had a private line into my son's thoughts. A space that should have belonged to me. Another time, my son came over wearing a hoodie I'd never seen. I said it looked cool. He smiled, proud. So I've even got it for him. Then he added, like he was reciting something. He said I should dress more grown-up now. I paused. Grown-up? He's 7. Then came the flashbacks. Not full memories, just quick cuts that hit me when I least expected, like the time I walked into his old bedroom and saw it painted over. The mural I spent 2 weeks making, gone. Covered in gray. He said it was too childish, my son told me. Kevin said gray makes me think better. And the worst one. One night, while tucking him in, I brushed a curl off his forehead and said, "Love you, buddy." He blinked, confused. "Kevin says not to call me that anymore," he whispered. "Says it's not cool." I froze. My mouth opened, then closed. What could I say? Argue? Force it? Make him feel caught in the middle again? So I just smiled and kissed his forehead. But my insides were twisting, because I wasn't just losing time with my son. I was losing language. Shared memories, small rituals. The tiny bricks of identity that build a bond between a parent and their child. And Kevin wasn't just stepping in. He was quietly rewriting bedtime stories, rewriting rules, rewriting what love looked like in that house. I started to wonder. Who was this man, really? What kind of person needs to erase someone to feel like a father? I didn't have answers yet, but I was about to start digging. Because when you feel your son slipping through your fingers, not because of distance, but by design. You either break or you fight back. I didn't start with a plan, just instinct. A quiet resolve. I knew I couldn't confront him, not yet. Men like Kevin are good at twisting narratives. If I raised a concern, he'd say I was unstable, emotional, the jealous ex. And maybe I was, but I wasn't wrong. So instead, I got quiet, strategic. I changed my schedule so I could pick up my son from school once a week. Legally, it was still my right. The office didn't like it, but I stopped caring about promotions the day I realized my son was forgetting my laugh. At pickup, I started chatting with teachers. Nothing heavy, just small talk, listening, watching. One afternoon, his music teacher mentioned how engaged Kevin was. He even suggested we start a more structured discipline system, she said, casually. He said your son's behavior could improve if we were stricter. I stared at her, my jaw tight. Stricter? My son had never been a problem child. Sensitive, maybe. Energetic, sure. But never disrespectful. Why would Kevin want them to tighten the screws? Another time, I asked my son if he still played with his toy guitar. He shook his head. Kevin said I'm not good at music, he mumbled. Said I should focus on math instead. That night, I sat on my floor and stared at old photos. Him in that blue superhero cape. Him dancing in my kitchen with a wooden spoon like it was a microphone. My boy loved music. And now, that joy was gone, filtered out like noise. So I started keeping a journal. Not just notes anymore. Records. What he said, what changed, what Kevin did, what he stopped doing. The teachers, the behaviors, the expressions on my son's face when certain topics came up. And slowly, a pattern emerged. Control, manipulation, a subtle shrinking of identity. Kevin wasn't just trying to be a father figure, he was trying to overwrite me. Not through anger, not through violence. But through quiet erosion. And the worst part, my ex either didn't see it. Or didn't care. Until one evening, my son said something that froze me in place. He was coloring at the table in my apartment, humming softly. I watched him. His shoulders looked lighter when he was here. Safer. Out of nowhere, he said, Kevin says you're supposed to disappear one day. I blinked. What? I asked gently. He didn't look up. He says I'll get older and forget you. That it's normal. My blood turned cold. He said it like he was describing the weather, like it was a fact of life. I wanted to scream, shake something, punch through the wall. But I didn't. I swallowed it, every ounce of pain. Because if Kevin wanted me erased, he clearly hadn't learned who I was yet. I don't disappear, I dig. And the next thing I was about to uncover would change everything. I started with the obvious, public records. Kevin's full name, which I finally found on one of the school event sign-up sheets, scrawled in his annoyingly perfect handwriting, Kevin R. Mitchell. A simple search brought up nothing alarming at first. A LinkedIn page with vague job titles. No real online presence. That in itself was a red flag. Everyone leaves a trail. Unless they're careful or hiding. I dug deeper. Property records. Old addresses. Civil cases, forums. Anything. And then I found an old local newspaper clipping from Oregon, buried deep. The kind of thing that doesn't show up on the first 5 pages of Google. Local youth counselor let go after multiple complaints filed by parents. The article was vague, no criminal charges, no details. But the language was careful. The kind of careful that screams legal pressure. I stared at the blurry photo attached. It was him. A little younger, same smug smile. Same eyes that always looked like they were scanning for an angle. I printed it out and stared at it for hours that night. Why had my ex never told me this? Did she know? Or had he done to her what he was doing to my son, slowly reshaping her world until truth didn't? feel like truth anymore. I couldn't confront him yet. Not without more. So I called a friend, one of the few I still had after the divorce. He was a cop in the next county. I told him I was worried about a man spending time with my son. I didn't give details. Just asked him to check if anything ever popped up off record. 2 days later, he called me back. His tone was low, serious. Nothing chargeable, he said. But I'd keep him far away from my kid if it were me. He mentioned restraining orders filed and later dropped by a previous partner. A therapist who'd filed a concern when Kevin refused to let her meet alone with the child he was co-parenting. The pattern was clear now. Kevin was a controller, not loud, not physical, but psychological, subtle, strategic. He picked people who were emotionally vulnerable, single moms, scattered families. He inserted himself as a savior, then rewrote the rules of the house to suit his image. And if someone got in his way, a real parent, a concerned teacher, a whisper of truth, he cut them out. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff. One wrong move, and I'd be labeled obsessive, delusional. But silence? Silence would cost me everything. I needed a way to expose him. But not with a fight, with the truth. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I asked my ex to meet me. Just us, neutral place. A coffee shop we used to go to, back before everything. She hesitated, of course. But eventually she said yes. When she sat across from me, I saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the guarded tension. She thought I was going to accuse her, shame her. But I didn't. I started with a whisper, with concern, with evidence. I told her what our son had been saying, how he was changing, shrinking. I told her about the article, the therapist, the restraining orders. I slid the printed page across the table, and I watched her hands tremble. She didn't speak for a long time, just stared at it. Then finally, she whispered, "He told me you were trying to poison my mind, that you were dangerous." Her voice cracked. I believed him. I leaned forward, voice steady. He doesn't want you to co-parent. He wants control. Not just over our son, but over you. Tears welled in her eyes. And I knew, in that moment, something in her had shifted. Fog was lifting. And what came next would shatter Kevin's world. I didn't expect fireworks, just a crack, a fracture. Something small enough to let the light in. And that's exactly what happened. After our conversation, my ex didn't say much. She gathered the papers, nodded once, and left. Her eyes were glassy, but there was something else behind them. Focus. I waited. A week passed. Then 2. I kept things quiet, didn't push, didn't call. But during my next visit, I noticed something different. My son smiled more. Not the distracted, performative smile I'd grown used to, a real one. His shoulders were looser. He asked me to stay longer. Showed me a drawing he made, me and him on a boat, holding fishing rods. Just as and there was no Kevin in sight. It was subtle, but I could feel it. Kevin's grip was slipping. And then it happened. One Thursday evening, I got a call from my ex. Her voice was steady but tense. "Can you come over?" I hesitated. "Is everything okay? Just come." When I arrived, the house was quiet. My son was with a neighbor. My ex met me at the door, arms crossed. Behind her, Kevin sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, his jaw tight, his eyes flicking between me and her like a trapped animal. She handed me a small black recording device. I raised an eyebrow. "I left it on during a phone call," she said. "With him, after I asked about what you told me." I played it. Kevin's voice calm, then defensive, then icy. The mask peeling away word by word. He's trying to turn you against me. Your kid's confused because of him. You need to decide who's in charge of this house. I've done more for him than his real dad ever did. Then silence. Then something darker. If you let him back in, you'll regret it. I promise you that. When I looked up, Kevin was staring at me, but the usual smug confidence was gone. There was a flicker of fear, not because of me, because of the truth. He stood up slowly, trying to regain posture. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "You're letting your past poison your future." But she didn't even look at him. Her voice was calm, final. "You need to leave." I'll never forget the look on his face. The way he paused, like he still thought he could talk his way out of it. But there was no script for this moment. No manipulation that could erase what she'd heard. Kevin packed his things that night. No scene. No apology. Just the quiet unraveling of a man who built his world on control and watched it collapse. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically return to how they used to be, but they grew, slowly, like grass pushing through concrete. My son smiled more, laughed louder. He started calling me buddy again, without flinching. We went fishing one weekend. Just the two of us. No phones, no tension. Just the sound of water, the smell of pine, the feeling of his little shoulder leaning against mine. My ex and I talk now, not as lovers, not even quite as friends, but as two people finally standing on the same side of the line. For him. For our son. Kevin thought he could replace me. Thought he could rewrite the role of a father, with careful lies and well-timed gestures. But he forgot the one thing I never did. You don't have to be perfect to be a father. You just have to show up, even when they try to push you out. Even when the world says to let go, you fight, quietly, patiently, with love. And when the time comes, the truth speaks, and you take your place back, not by force, not by guilt, but by being the one who never stopped showing up. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel. It really helps. Click the video on the screen, and I'll see you there.